Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are joining us from, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Andreas Neumann, and I'm the Service Sales Director for Europe Direct Countries at INNIO Jenbacher, and I will be your host today. The title of today's webinar is the Jenbacher N40 or N Oil 40. But before going into detail, let me quickly give you some details around our online seminar platform. We are using the webinar platform On24. You will notice that this webinar is browser-based. So if you disconnect for any reason, please just click on the link that you received by email to rejoin the session. In order to ask questions, you can send them via the question widget. Just type them into the box at the top left-hand corner on your screen and click Submit. We will allocate some time at the end of the session to address any questions or thoughts you might have. Please use the yellow Help widget if you require any assistance, and you can move, resize, and maximize any of the windows in front of you to get a better view of the slides. Having said that, let me go into details with a look at our agenda for today. At first topic, we're going to answer the question, who are INNIO Jenbacher and ExxonMobil, just as a brief overview. Then for sure, the story behind the Jenbacher N Oil 40. And coming along with that, the question, why do OEM work together with oil suppliers? We will give you an overview, not only the product, but also the benefits of the new oil. Then we will look at the field trials we already performed. And last not least, how to order the Jenbacher N Oil 40. To present those topics, it is our pleasure to have Pearson and Frank Heber with us today, who will be presenting this webinar titled Jenbacher N Oil 40. Pearson, he's our senior engineer and he owns the fluid system at INNIO Jenbacher, and he's responsible for managing strategic partnership and technical product development with lubricant suppliers. And Frank Heber, he's energy sector specialist for Central Europe at ExxonMobil and is responsible for the implementation of the co-developed. But now, please allow me to welcome Luke as first presenter.
Thank you, Andreas, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. First of all, I'd like to give you a very short overview of the INNIO Group. The INNIO Group has its headquarters in Jenbach in Austria, and it's made up of two engine businesses, both the Jenbacher and Walkinshaw gas engines. To date, we have delivered 52,000 or over 52,000 gas engines worldwide, found in over 100 countries. We have over 53 gigawatts of deployed power, and this is the equivalent to powering over 80 million European households, or 6 times the size of New York City. Both engine businesses work together in one common direction, supporting the global energy transformation and enabling sustainable energy into the future. INNIO provides a wide range of applications to ensure our customer success wherever they are on or off the grid, from cities to the most remote areas of this world. INNIO gas engines provide reliable power under the most demanding circumstances, and we continue to develop technologies that deliver greater flexibility whilst making our gas engines more efficient and last longer, such as our latest product offering, the Jenbacher N Oil 40. And now I will hand you over to Frank for a short introduction on ExxonMobil.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. Also, warm welcome from my side. Ahlan, ciao, salam, wherever you are listening from. For those of you who have never heard about ExxonMobil, I'd like to give you a brief introduction of what ExxonMobil stands for. The ExxonMobil history is spanning across 3 centuries by now. And we have evolved from a small regional marketer of kerosene to an advanced energy and chemical innovator. Today, we are one of the world's largest publicly traded energy providers and chemical manufacturers. Worldwide, we market fuels and lubricants under 4 brands that you can see here: Esso, ExxonMobil, and also ExxonMobil Chemicals. Mobil is the brand that we are using for our industrial lubricants and greases. What are the benefits of this collaboration? Well, the biggest one is the global scale of the 2 companies. As you can see on the map here, we are present with our lubricants in almost every country. Those are the blue ones that you see here, either direct or via our ExxonMobil authorized distributors and our alliance partners. We have lubricant blending plants on every continent, and we have several research and technology centers spread across the world. And as you can also see here, we are handling over 1 million used oil samples yearly in our 5 regional oil analysis labs. Another big benefit of the collaboration is that our processes, for example, regarding lubricant production, quality control, and distribution, are following the same global rules. ExxonMobil's global product quality management system ensures that regardless in which part of the globe you purchase the Jenbacher N Oil 40, we guarantee the same specification and performance. Also to mention, we are providing global engineering support, specifically through field engineering virtually or through on-site visits. We do boroscopic inspections, and we also perform lubricant-related consultations. We move to the next one. Where it all began, you can see a short overview of the timeline of our common collaboration here. ExxonMobil and Jenbacher have had a development relationship history for over 2 decades. During this time, the discussion started arising about how we could utilize our unique knowledge and our common experience to provide the maximum benefit for our customers and their engines. In 2015, we strengthened that collaboration when we decided to bring the engine experience of Jenbacher and the oil expertise of ExxonMobil together to produce what we called then a next generation long life oil that would be developed especially for Jenbacher gas engines. Since then, we have worked closely together to create the best possible oil for our entire natural gas portfolio. By combining the expertise, we have field tested and co-engineered an oil that works in harmony with all Jenbacher natural gas engines. How did we get there? Together, we started out by carrying out extensive testing on engines to gain as much data as possible. Over the past 5 years, we have conducted over 160,000 operating hours of field validation at multiple sites across all our natural gas engine range. And we are now pleased to present the Jenbacher N Oil 40, an oil that is formulated for the current and next generation gas engines. Let me hand back to Luke.
Okay, to give you an overview and the story behind Jenbacher N Oil 40, as Frank has touched on, we've had a development collaboration between Jenbacher and ExxonMobil for well over 10 years. But within the last 10 years, we've really been focusing on how we can better collaborate together and really try and see the lubricant as a critical component to the engine. We're trying to really take the most experience that we have from an OEM gas engine development perspective and really complement what ExxonMobil have to offer in terms of their lubricant development and engineers and everybody associated with the business. We've come together and developed a new process and a way of thinking about developing lubricants, which doesn't just span across the field validation perspective, but it's also looking all the way back from a formulation point of view. So overall, we've covered over 160,000 hours worth of field validation across multiple engine platforms whilst developing this product, with fleet leaders exceeding more than 18,000 operating hours and achieving a substantial increase in oil drain intervals. Part of this has been extensive field testing, which is over and beyond what we would typically have done in the prior 10 years to releasing this product. And to take maybe one step backwards and look at why we have done this, we feel as an OEM, the way that we should develop a lubricant is changing. In the past, this was very much take a product off of the shelf, take a trial and error approach. You would always have oil life as an output to a field test rather than an input. And these field tests were not always successful. So a typical field test could take anywhere from 2 to 5 years. And often if you get to the end of a 5-year cycle of testing a lubricant, it could be outdated when it's commercially available. Perhaps our engines have evolved quicker than the lubricant can evolve. So we felt the need to change this process, and the future and the way that we've been looking at this is to develop the oil as a system for our engine. So similarly, as we would have the cylinder head or the power unit as a critical system to the engine, we would see the lubricant as a critical system and actually a critical component. It is the lifeblood of the engine, and it needs to keep us protected. So we follow here a very different validation and verification approach. It is a true co-engineering effort between the OEM and the oil supplier in this case. And we're looking at lifetime and cleanliness as an input into the development activity, not necessarily just an output and what you would see from the field validation. We want to determine what we require for our customers right at the very start and ensure that we can demonstrate this before we go to a real-world application. And part of this is to change the process on how we as the OEM develop the products with the oil supplier. When we look at this co-engineering approach, we have to establish first of all what the customer requirements are before we start discussing at a formulation level. And you can see here where Mobil and where Jenbacher are involved throughout the process. We do front load the activities here, which means we look at the formulation level together. We then look at the lab screener testing. So you're developing and formulating maybe 50 to 100 different lubricants right at the very start. And then every step of the way throughout this process, you're down selecting your candidates until you get to a smaller sample size. So in this case here, we've developed new lab screener tests to ensure that we have product cleanliness established in a lab before we even take it to a fired engine test. In Jenbacher, we developed a special overload test where we could replicate certain failure modes within a short period of time, and we could understand how the oil ages without going to a field test almost immediately. So in this case, we can screen multiple oils very quickly, look at different ways that they perform before we feel comfortable with the final products going to a field test. And once we establish a field test together, we have enough confidence that we can spread this over multiple engines and generate a very large data set with good statistical confidence that we are able to achieve the high performance that this lubricant offers. And then ultimately, this is then feeding back into those initial customer requirements.
Yeah, this slide gives just a brief overview of what an oil consists of. Thanks, Luke. And as you saw on the previous slide, it starts with a lot of thinking and a lot of criteria, selections. And just keep in mind that the slide is not quantitative. So there's not always 80% base oil and 20% additives as it is suggested by this pie chart here. But just to give you a brief overview of what usually goes into an engine oil formulation. So we start with dispersants and detergents. Those are essential components to keep the engine clean, keep any debris, any contamination that is accumulating in the oil together and bring it to the filter where it is then disposed of. So usually when you look at an oil, you can't see what's inside. So this is why most people never really realize that modern gas engine oils are in fact high-tech products. And it's the careful selection of the base oils and additives where the oil suppliers know how makes the real difference here. So the antioxidants, for example, are essential to keep the lifetime of the oil as long as possible. We see on the spider graph here on the right-hand side just a few of the many criteria that went into the oil development. So when we start on the top here, key criteria is, of course, engine cleanliness. And as you can see here, the elements that are going into that, if you control the cleanliness, you can also control the wear. So what benefits does it have? It keeps the components in perfect condition for a lot longer, but also it improves the catalyst lifetime. So anything that is done in the oil to improve the cleanliness is also happening inside the engine as well as after the engine. It's continuous when you go downstream from the engine, that you have clean exhaust heat exchangers, which is essential for the heat production. This is what most of you are making the money on. And if you go further down, the oxidation stability, nitration stability, those are key criteria to extend the oil drain interval. Also, what we have now combined together as additive performance. Additives are essential ingredients in an oil that can emphasize or suppress some properties that come with the base oil. So the base oil is already the key part here to select the right lubricant. Why I also mentioned viscosity stability, this is not that much of a concern for monograde oil, but just keep in mind that oils have a volatility, and if you can control that, you can also control the viscosity stability, which is essential to keep all the lubricant parameters in check. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. So really looking at the product overview of the Jenbacher N Oil 40, this is formulated and developed for the current and next generation of Jenbacher gas engines. Its applicability is for all products that we produce in natural gas. So this is covering type 2, 3, 4, 6 and 9, aluminium and steel pistons, all the way through our portfolio. This is all based on accumulating over 160,000 hours worth of field test data across multiple different engine platforms, covering all of the platforms that we've listed here. And yeah, this was approximately 100 units on long-term monitoring to collect this level of data. It also has been developed with new condemning limits. So part of this was to also understand what the development has looked like over the last few years and why we need to be using condemning limits that have been available for the last 20 years. We wanted to develop something new here and have the appropriate limits for next generation gas engine oils. And I'll just click across and we'll have a short video followed by a couple of questions.
INNIO Jenbacher Gasmotoren helfen Unternehmen weltweit seit über 60 Jahren zuverlässig und effizient Energie zu erzeugen. Heute bin ich bei unserem Kunden Hansewerk Natur in Norddeutschland.
Die Hansewerk Natur ist ein Serviceunternehmen in der Hansewerk-Gruppe und beschäftigt 200 Mitarbeiter. Wir betreiben 254 BAKWs im gesamten norddeutschen Raum.
Damit unsere Kunden wie Hansewerk Natur die beste Leistung aus ihren Jenbacher Motoren herausholen können, hat INNIO beschlossen, zusammen mit ExxonMobil neue Gasmotorenöle für alle Jenbacher Erdgasmotoren mitzuentwickeln.
As an equipment builder engineer of ExxonMobil, I'm working side by side with the experts from INNIO Jenbacher. In close collaboration with INNIO Jenbacher, we jointly draw on our specific expertise to develop innovative lubricants, which are critical components of the engine. The development requires creative thinking and extensive technology testing. We monitored more than 100 active field validation engines across multiple Jenbacher engine platforms during more than 150,000 operating hours to test and confirm the performance of the final gas engine technology.
Für den wirtschaftlichen Betrieb unserer BAKW-Flotte war es uns sehr wichtig, sehr gute Produkte und Betriebsstoffe zu finden, die wir gemeinschaftlich mit unserem Partner entwickelt haben und zur Marktreife gebracht haben.
ExxonMobil have been producing mobile gas engine oils for more than 50 years, so we have the right experience and expertise to support INNIO Jenbacher customers. Lubricants are like the blood of the engines, so selecting the right oil for your engine can really make a difference on its maintenance and spare part requirements.
Ein großer Vorteil des neuen Öls ist die verlängerte Standzeit. Dadurch sparen wir Öl und Ölfilter ein und generieren weniger Altöl.
Das neue gemeinsam entwickelte Öl bietet unseren Kunden genau das, was sie für eine weiterhin reibungslose Strom- und Wärmeerzeugung benötigen. Ausführliche Langzeittests bestätigen, dass die Verwendung dieses neuen Öls dazu beiträgt. Längere Ölwechselintervalle zu garantieren und somit eine längere Betriebszeit zu gewährleisten, die insbesondere während Heizperioden sehr, sehr wichtig ist. Ablagerungen zu verringern, wodurch Ölfilter länger in Gebrauch sein können. Die Verwendung dieses gemeinsam entwickelten Öls hilft den Kunden von Jenbacher Gasmotoren, minimale Gesamtbetriebskosten zu erzielen.
I guess that was a good overview over a partnership that we already developed with one of our main customers in the northern part of Germany. And having seen that and having the first impression of what the Jenbacher N Oil 40 is capable for, then let me please ask you for some of those questions. And you can just type in there by clicking the different answers, and we will afterwards see what these polls, what the result is there. Just go through it. Which features are you looking for when choosing for our oil? Increased lifetime, the first possibility for sure. Second is life cycle cost savings. The third one, improved performance, or fourth, the cleaner operations. So just clicking what your main purpose is when you're looking for an oil gas engine oil. Thank you, and here are the results. And you see the main, let's say, decision is going to be made on the life cycle cost savings, for sure. Then second, and both are equally important, is increase the lifetime of the engine oil and the improved performance. Thank you for that. And with that, we have a first impression, what the audience think about the oil, and let's continue with the presentation.
Thank you. So I think those poll results really, they feed in well to the product benefits. And I think, touching on that first answer, or the one with the highest amount of results there, was the life cycle cost. So when we started to look at developing this product, it was really in our mind that the total cost of ownership, or the life cycle cost, is the biggest thing for an operator. So our aim here is to develop a high quality, high performance product that actually offers a life cycle cost benefit. So we need to be understanding of the level of base oil quality and additive properties, which Frank was talking about earlier, how these all interact, and ensure that we're developing the best products which can fit into this category. So with Jenbacher N Oil 40, we feel that the products that we've used and the performance that we've been able to achieve here can reduce your life cycle cost up to 30%. This is really based on extending the lifetime of the product. So during the field trials, on average, we're able to extend the oil and the filter lifetime by up to 100%. Over all of the platforms that we mentioned earlier in natural gas operation. One of the other benefits that we have with the way that we've formulated the product is that we have an improvement in dry lubrication properties. So this gives added protection in certain areas such as in exhaust valves and other reciprocating hardware. The additive package that we've used really focuses on having an enhanced dispersancy. So this is really looking at the cleanliness and the soot control of your oil, So especially in high thermally loaded applications and high BNEP steel pistons, this is important for us to ensure that if any deposits are generated, they're handled by that oil and controlled and passed through the system and through the filter. We have the best-in-class solvency based on the base oil and additive package that we've used. So again, looking at this high temperature deposit control in high BNEP applications. And we've developed a product that works across the entire Jenbacher portfolio in natural gas operations, so a single product to fill an entire fleet. And finally, with this is the extended condemning limits for longer oil drain intervals, and I'll come on to that later. So the Jenbacher N Oil 40 will help you to lower your total overall oil consumption through the life cycle of your engine and lower your waste oil costs if you can have that product in your engine for longer. It will lower your spare parts cost and decrease maintenance time and manual interventions or unplanned outages. It can help you increase engine uptime with more production and more revenue potential and enhance the engine reliability. And on top of this, improving storage efficiencies, which Frank can touch on later. So going back to the condemning limits, something I mentioned before was that for pretty much every engine oil that's been available for Jenbacher engines over the years, there's always been a constant condemning limit that's been used, and we felt with this development we need to really understand what the condemning limits are there for, and really why we should be taking the oil out of an engine, and is it really the right time? Because our development cycle is so front-loaded with a lot of lab-scale testing and development work, we're able to screen a lot of these parameters very early on. And part of this was understanding what the oxidation and the TBN stability looks like, which is typical degradation parameters. So in this case here, we're able to go above and beyond the standard oxidation limit, which is applicable for most products. So we can increase this from 20 to 25. And total base number we can reduce from a 50% of the starting value down to an absolute of 3. So I'll show some examples of these later, where we can see the benefits of these extended limits if they're required. And to give some examples on this TBN, we plotted here a Type 620F version steel piston and also a 416C steel piston. And we're comparing here the Jenbacher N Oil 40 versus a typical reference oil found. So similar high quality performance gas engine oil. And on the 620F on the left hand side, you can see here that TBN depletion, we're able to significantly increase this. And in both cases here, this is a back-to-back comparison. So we've been running a reference product on the engine. We've only switched to the Jenbacher oil. We've made no other changes. And we can significantly improve and increase the lifetime of that product. On the right-hand side with the 416, this is maybe one of the more severe applications if we've got a very small sump size in a steel piston operation. This customer here was struggling to meet that 2,000-hour service interval and was able to go beyond that and operate more towards 3,000 and 4,000 operating hours with the Jenbacher oil. And then looking at the oxidation stability, so again, the same customers here, the 620F and the 416C steel piston engines. Really, this one here, I plotted both the standard limit of 20 and the extended limit of 25. And what you will notice here is, due to the quality of the oil that we're using, we have a lot better thermal stability. So when we're looking at oxidation performance, that slope is significantly lower. So when we look at the 620F, for instance, previously the operator was achieving less than 2,000 operating hours, which is the minimal service interval. And due to the improved oxidation stability here, we're able to significantly improve on that. And note here that the extended limit is not always required to go beyond and extend the lifetime here. Even if you took that standard 20 limit, it's making a significant improvement. On the 416, again, a very similar story. I've only plotted here the 25, and the reason for this is that this customer felt that they had to increase that limit themselves to meet that 2,000-hour service interval. In this case here, the Jenbacher N Oil 40 is able to achieve that standard 2,000-hour maintenance interval with 20 and even go beyond that by using the extended limits. So in here, more than doubling the lifetime in both cases. And now I'll show 2 slides really looking at the robustness of the product and some additional benefits that you could see. So first, just touching on excellent valve protection. So the way that this formulation has been developed is to put an emphasis also on the tribological film that's generated. So what I want to show here is examples again of back-to-back testing where we've looked at a standard reference oil and looked at the amount of valve wear, and Jenbacher N Oil 40 is proven to reduce valve wear by up to 40% versus standard approved oils in our technical instruction, and this is without changing hardware. So in this case here, engine 1 on the left-hand side, we're seeing some cases of maximum valve wear being achieved, and just by switching to the Jenbacher N Oil 40, they could significantly lower their average valve wear. And referring to steel piston technology, so that the high BMEP steel pistons that we have in the Type 4, the Type 6 and the Type 9, one area that we focus on is cleanliness within that top ring groove area, and on the left-hand side is really just an example of an oil that's degraded in that top ring area. It's generating hard carbon formation, and what we wanted to do was improve this. So on the right-hand side, we at Jenbacher had developed our own proprietary overload test, looking at coking oils at very high overload conditions on our internal development test benches, and we're just here comparing reference oils to the Jenbacher oil against a design target that we've put in place. So here we have again a significant margin when we look at the amount of deposits that are generated in that top ring zone. And to really finally touch on how customers are benefiting from this. So just one example out of those 100 engines and the 160,000 hours worth of field testing we have completed. This is a test we started in 2017 at a university in Germany. This was operating in CHP. This customer had switched from a standard Mobile Pegasus product to the Jenbacher N Oil 40, so they were achieving just short of 2,000 operating hours. In the end, we were able to extend this customer's oil drain interval to over 4,500 operating hours on average. One of these drains did exceed 6,000 operating hours. Condemning factors in this case are TBN and oxidation at a very similar point in time. And we completed several borescope inspections throughout, so we're just really ensuring that we are able to make the valve recession, understand what the deposit tendency is looking like. But one of the most important things here at the end is that the customer confirmed that they had an overall life cycle cost reduction. So thinking about where we wanted to be a few years ago in developing this product, our real goal was to have life cycle cost improvements, total cost of ownership improvements for end users, and this is the type of response that we want to see from our customers when supporting trials in this nature. So now I'll hand back over to Frank, who's going to talk about a couple more slides.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Luke. Please don't forget to ask the questions. I see that we have received a couple of them. We will answer them shortly. One of the questions is also how to switch over to the Jenbacher N Oil 40. What we recommend is that the storage tank is emptied before filling of the Jenbacher N Oil 40. We target 5% maximum, 10% of the former oil. We have done a lot of compatibility testing, so we do not expect any issues here. The tests that we've done showed all no issues. Of course, the less you have of the former oil in your tank, the faster and the quicker you can enjoy the benefits of the Jenbacher N Oil 40. What we also recommend that the first oil drain should last about half the usual drain interval. This is simply a precautionary measure to make sure that the former oil is flushed out of the engine and that all the tanks and pipes are clean, so that the new oil is present all over the engine. There may be some older engine designs where you are, for example, not able to empty the oil cooler completely. So this is I would say, the precautionary measure that we put in place here, that we recommend. Usually, you should see within the first up to the third oil drain interval that you can see the full performance of the oil. This has something to do with the cleaning of any debris, any deposits that may still be present in the engine. And during this time, you may also have to watch the filters and the differential pressure on the filters, because we cannot predict what the influence of the previous oil fill is, but we also recommend the appropriate used oil analysis. Then you can see how far of the previous oil is still in the oil, and also to what extent the engine has been cleaned already. Just to summarize at this point here, what are the key benefits? And some of you have already answered. You see, or you foresee and anticipate a reduction in lifecycle costs, and biggest part of that is, of course, the savings on the maintenance itself through longer oil drain interval. You will also see, due to the improved additive composition, that the engines run a lot cleaner. We will see, especially in the first ring groove, a much improved cleanliness, and therefore an improved resistance to ring sticking. And this is clearly something that we saw probably on one of the pictures before, where the ring groove was completely filled. In such a ring groove, the ring can't move anymore, and this is where the wear starts, usually with the engine very quickly. And last but not least, also the dry lubrication properties that Luke had mentioned before. We see with the Jenbacher N Oil 40 an excellent protection and very good results to protect the engine, especially the valve seats here, due to lower, of course not the boiler, but much lower ash formation on the valve seats. You still need a little bit to lubricate the valves itself. Last but not least, how can we order, or can you order the product? The Jenbacher N Oil 40 is already available through the INNIO network, so please feel free to reach out to your local INNIO or INNIO authorized distributor contact. And also, please make sure you reach your mobile representative, or also the many mobile authorized dealers and distributors that we have available in our network, to provide more information. You see here on the right-hand side some engine plates. So all the new natural gas engines that are coming out of Jenbach will have this engine plate on it. You see on the QR code here, if you scan it, it will lead you directly to one of the other links that you see here on the left-hand side, where you can get more information on the product data sheet, material safety data sheet, and other information. On the bottom, you see an example of a pack label design. This is of a 1000 liter IBC. Similar here, you see the co-brand, both the Jenbacher and the Mobil brand listed on the product label, as well as the QR codes again. Currently, we have 3 packaging options. This is the 208 liter or 55 US gallon drum, the already mentioned 1000 liter IBC, and of course, bulk is available as well. So I think at this point in time, we can move over to the question and answer section. So Andreas, if you just pick a few, and then we can start answering those questions.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Luke, for the presentation. And just a reminder for the audience, in order to ask questions, you can send them via the question widget. And just type them in, and then click submit, and then we're going to receive it. Let's look. We already have some in here. First question, do we have any performance comparison with top brands like Pegasus 1005? I guess that's one for Frank.
Yes, I can answer this. Let me start. We had the question before. You saw one of the references we made to the Pegasus 705. Pegasus 705 has been in the market for over 30 years. It was developed more or less at the beginning of the gas engine boom. It is still performing well, but of course, with the nature of the product being a Group 1 based oil, we do not see the oil drain intervals anymore. Of course, the new high BMEP engines put a lot of thermal stress on the engine oil, and therefore we do not reach that anymore. And similar with the Pegasus 1005. This is also now 15 years old, roughly. This was one of the first products that was developed to address the steel piston engines. And since then, we have made significant progress in the oil drain interval, in the engine cleanliness, in the wear performance, which was good already at that time, but there's always room to improve. And we have reached a new level now with the unique formulation of the Jenbacher N Oil 40.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Next question, also quite interesting one. Can Jenbacher N Oil 40 be used for biogas or for landfill sites also?
So the product is approved for natural gas. So from our fuel classifications, this is fuel class A for all of our platforms, but fuel class A does cover cleaned or treated versions of biogas and landfill gas.
Okay, thank you, Luke. Next question. So, it's more a statement than a question, but so the oil is not valid for engines with high BMEP. We must wait until 2021. Maybe that's one for Frank.
I think we mentioned that before during Luke's presentation already, that it is designed for high BMEP engines. Of course, as with those products that we are providing, they are all backward compatible. Of course, you can use the Jenbacher N Oil 40 also in an engine that is still running on aluminum pistons. But of course, the design criteria were clearly for high BMEP.
Okay, thank you. And the question also partially be answered already, but let's also step into that one. How much its life lasts as comparison to Mobile Pegasus 1005?
As we've seen here with the Pegasus 1005, we have already reached very long oil drain intervals in the past. With what Luke had explained earlier on is that we already see a significant increase of the oil drain interval. So we are now safely reaching the minimum drain interval that is, I think it's in the manual, Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, about the 3,333 operating hours. So we definitely have a very good safety margin above that. So, and this is a significant step change already since the Pegasus 1005. But again, keep in mind that this is a uniquely formulated product, the Jenbacher N Oil 40.
I think maybe just to add something to that as well, when we're talking about reference products, we have tried to validate this against similar products that are available in the category. So we showed one example there with Pegasus 705, and there's a couple of the other questions have come in on mobile Pegasus 1005. Really for us, we wanted to compare it and validate it against other Group 2 formulations. So what you would typically see in our technical instruction and what's approved for our steel pistons, we wanted to ensure that we're offering benefits against equivalent products. So most of the validation here has been done against premium Group 2 lubricants.
Okay, perfect. The next one is again regarding the engine itself. Can it be used with engines equipped with catalytic converters?
Yes. Again, the product is formulated in a way that we've selected the right additives that are not so sensitive to the catalyst, and we've completed catalyst validation tests. So the approval in the technical instruction also has the catalyst approval for the Jenbacher engines.
Perfect. Looking at the next ones, maybe also to Frank. Are there particular storage and handling procedures needed for that oil?
No, this is a very good question. There are no specific storage and handling requirements for this particular product. So as I mentioned before, the oil can be topped up on the existing oil. Of course, we recommend that the previous oil is drained as much as possible. But I guess the question goes into the direction of synthetic product. This is not the case here. So you can handle the Jenbacher N Oil 40 as you currently use your engine oil. There is no specific change, no specific procedures. For everything else, if you have questions, please refer to the material safety data sheet.
So then I got a quite interesting one. If once a customer has a mixed fleet, can he also use the Jenbacher oil in other brand engines? That's a quite good one. I don't know if we already tested it. Maybe it's one for Luke. If it can be used in Waukesha and Caterpillar engines.
Hopefully. I think let's get there. So, certainly with the Jenbacher engines, we're currently looking at approval within certain Waukesha product lines as well. So let's say it's nothing that's available right now, but maybe something for the future. With regards to mixed fleet of other OEM products, this is a high performance premium gas engine oil that is suitable for the severity of a steel piston. It doesn't have or hold any other approvals, but let's see if it could be fit for purpose in the future. Okay, then a question regarding environment. What can we get as benefit environmentally if we use the recommended oil? That's a good one.
Of course, it comes simply with the extended oil drain intervals, and this is, I think, quite logical. The less oil you use, and the less oil you have disposed. So this is definitely already the environmental benefit of using the Jenbacher N Oil 40. Of course, when the question goes into the direction of oil consumption, this is something that we have seen with the modern engine anyway, that all the new latest engine technology, if you just compare the status quo to, let's say, 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, we were talking about very high oil consumption in the region of 0.5 gram per kilowatt hour. Modern engines are using half of that already. So simply the engine technology itself is reducing the environmental footprint of the oil as well as the extended oil drain intervals. So from that perspective, I think this is the environmental benefit that you can cite here.
Let me see if I understand this one right. When we have an old engine who run on former TA and Pegasus 1005, could we still use the extended used oil analysis limit only valid for Pegasus 1001 at the time?
So I understand that question. So the condemning limits that are applicable to the product are the extended limits that are published in the technical instruction that is delivered with the engine. So the extended limits that we have for the Jenbacher N Oil 40 is specific to this product, which it is validated in, which will be in the next technical instruction update. But referring to the Pegasus 1005 with some of its historical limits, those are applicable in the older versions of the technical instruction. So if your engine is delivered with a technical instruction that includes that limit, then it can still use it.
Then a question, but I also got this in the presentation. Nevertheless, maybe you can point that out, Frank or Luke, how much its life lasts as comparison to the mobile Pegasus 1005.
So this is very subjective and really dependent on which engine platform it is. I think on average, we have done testing comparing the Jenbacher N Oil 40 against Pegasus 1005, and we're able to achieve on average 100% increase. It's very dependent, where one engine could have 1,500 hours, and then we can increase that to 3,000 hours. In some cases, it could have 2,000 hours, and it could be increased to 4,000 hours. So it's relative to the way that that engine is operating and the application that it is running into.
Yeah, this is, thank you, Luke. This is also a question that we usually get very often. So, really, can you commit to a certain oil drain interval? And as Luke already mentioned, this is very much dependent on the individual engine's maintenance status, the operating condition, the gas quality. So we've seen this, especially if you look at, for example, if you look at Germany, the gas grid in Germany has various inputs of different gas qualities. So, and subsequently, we also see different operating parameters that these engines are running on. So therefore, it would not be fair and not be serious to guarantee an oil drain interval. And also, I would like to refer to the used oil analysis here. And if you look at the technical instruction of INNIO Jenbacher, it clearly says that the individual oil drain interval of an engine has to be determined by used oil analysis. And we had this question in the German session before. What would be a good interval to sample? Usually, I would recommend to have at least 3 to 5 data points of a used oil analysis within an oil drain interval. That gives you a good overview of what happens over the time between 2 oil drains, and also it gives you an overview of to see whether your oil drain interval is sufficient or whether it can be extended. So from that perspective, I think this is a good way to check where you are on that scale.
Okay, then I got another one also for different applications. Do you intend to launch a similar product specifically for biogas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Yeah, as I mentioned at the start of my presentation, this is the first Jenbacher gas engine, and over the next 3 to 5 years, we anticipate to release a few more as well. So we want to cover also the non-natural gas space in the future. So yeah, keep an eye out. There will be something coming in the future.
Okay, thank you. There is a question. We are currently using Pegasus 1107. Could Jenbacher N40 improve the performance?
Definitely, there is a way to improve the performance to the Jenbacher N Oil 40. As I said, it's a unique product, specifically designed and formulated for the high BMEP engines. Of course, if you ask me about the data, this is something that the field would have to prove. So there's, as I mentioned before, used oil analysis and also the regular inspection of the engine is also recommended to document and see the benefits that we see with the Jenbacher N Oil 40. So I mentioned the engineering services that we're providing. I would point out that, for example, an endoscopic inspection is the quickest and easiest health check that you can do on an engine and see what the current status is of the cleanliness of the wear situation. Are the valves clean? Is the cylinder cover clean? So these are all measures that you can do themselves, or we can support doing that for you to check the current status and the performance benefits of the Jenbacher N Oil 40.
Not sure whether I get this question right. What makes Jenbacher N Oil 40 less volatile than other oils?
I don't know where this is coming from, less volatile. I think I mentioned that when I was talking about the base oil itself, certain properties of an oil come definitely with a base oil. And as I mentioned before, a premium quality base oil that we're using for the Jenbacher N Oil 40 is definitely providing benefits in terms of volatility. So the composition of a base oil, I won't go into a detail here, but the composition of a base oil may contain, if it's poorly selected, may contain a high degree of volatile components, and this is something that you will see over time where it leads to a thickening of the oil because all the volatile components disappear from the oil.
Okay, and there's another one going to the gas quality. What is the maximum hydrogen sulfide content in the gas the oil can be used?
I think this is really referring to non-natural gas applications. So I think all of the development work that we've done and approval testing for the Jenbacher N Oil 40 has been based on natural gas. So this has not been validated for non-natural gas application.
Okay, then let's maybe pick one or two, and then guess we are more or less at the end of the session. Someone is asking for a reference, a recommendation letter. Yes, that for sure can be provided in either way with a local INNIO partner. And something, but that's similar. We are more or less going through that, but maybe you can phase it out again, Frank. What are the technical steps needed to switch from current engine oil to Jenbacher N40?
Yeah, I think this is already answered in the question before. We had the slide where I had shown the 3 steps for the switchover. So what I usually recommend is, and this is a common practice that I think everybody can do. Usually you have 2 tanks. You have a storage tank and you have a day tank. So what makes good practice is that you empty the storage tank into the day tank before you put in the Jenbacher N Oil 40 into the storage. And then you simply start using the Jenbacher N Oil 40 with, during the consumption of the engine. So there's nothing specially required. You don't need to clean the system. You need to wipe it out. It is a very easy switchover process.
Okay, then a final question for today's session, in the sake of timing. What are the average oil consumption compared with other oils?
Okay, so the Jenbacher N Oil 40 doesn't offer any major change in oil consumption across our engine platforms. So this partially links back to the volatility question earlier. During the validation stages, again, it's very dependent on the engine platform, but if you're looking at a Type 6 steel piston engine, for instance, you're in that region of 0.1 grams per kilowatt hour, very similar for the Type 4 as well. But it's very application on operation dependent. But yeah, switching from product A to Jenbacher N Oil 40, there's no significant change in the oil consumption. Okay, thank you. Yeah, then also thanks to the audience for participating. And finally, as a reminder, if you didn't get your question answered today, we are for sure also available, your local contacts, to answer that later on. Thank you to the speakers. Thanks to Luke. Thanks to Frank. And to all attendees, you will receive an email shortly telling you how you can access the on-demand version of this webinar, and that will be available for 1 year. So even throughout the year, you can have access to the on-demand version of this webinar. And you will get the link via email. And for sure, we are looking forward to sharing further webinars with you. So please keep an eye on our websites and on the usual social platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn. So thank you once again, and I hope for all of you, you have a nice day. And in these times, even more important, stay healthy. Thank you for your attendance.